Good morrow, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and this is a concert review. As I said in my intro, this is a concert review. More specifically, I'm going to be discussing the VIP experience and concert experience from the Richmond, Virginia Andy Black show. That's right, another 2019 Andy Black concert review. Why? Because I went to see him again. Sadly, I did not get to make a new outfit or a new dress or a new coat for this concert because I've been working more consistently, but I did paint my nails to match my outfit, and the outfit that I did wear was Andy Black Ghost merch from the previous concert. This was a baseball style shirt that looked like a baseball jersey shirt that had Ghost written on the back with the number 0, and it was red and black. So I wore black pants with it and my black and white shoes that I got from Journey because of Andy. And then I themed my nails red, white, and black to go with the jersey. And then to top it all off, I wore the red and black Andy Black hat that goes with the jersey. This time, I drove 3.5 hours to Richmond, Virginia just to see Andy again. I'm personally not the biggest fan of driving, like at all. And usually I wouldn't do that. The longest that I drive is like 2 hours to a concert in Charlotte or Raleigh or a convention in Charlotte or Raleigh. But this was just special. And my friend Amber actually lives in Richmond, so she was the one that kind of convinced me to go. So she was like my final deciding factor on the fact that I should go. And of course the plan is to meet up with her and go to the concert. On the way there, I actually experienced something that I've never experienced before. And that's paying a toll. Like, I've been through one toll in my entire life, and that was this one time when I was at Girl Scout camp and they picked me up from the airport. The girl had to go through a toll booth, and she actually was a resident of Florida, but she didn't have her sticker, so she had to go through and pay anyway because her sticker was expired or something. I don't know, it was this big thing, but I didn't really think anything of it. I was just like nervous to be there because it was my first time being in Florida, first time meeting this person, first time, lots of firsts. Lots of firsts. If you want to hear about my Florida experience and how I almost died, yes, I just said Florida experience and how I almost died, just let me know. But anyway, I had to pay my first toll. It was 75 cents. I only had dollars. So I had to pull through the little part where you actually talk to people, and I had to pay 75 cents. And then that wasn't enough. A little ways down there was a second toll, but this time I had my money ready, I had everything ready, and I paid my 75 cents again, which was $1, so I had extra change and I got 2 quarters back. Most people know how change works, so that's how change happened. And I didn't know that tolls existed. Like, I knew they existed, but I didn't know that, like, they were a thing. This is really hard to explain. I didn't know that there was going to be a toll from Greensboro to Virginia, is what I'm saying. Like, I knew tolls were a thing. I just didn't know they were a thing on that road. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Did not know there was going to be a toll on that road. So it was a surprise. It was a big surprise. It was an even huger surprise because I'd never paid a toll before and I had no clue how to do it. But I just kind of learned. I instantly learned. It was like exact change, something sticker, and full service, and I just took a guess and went to full service, and that was the right one. And the guys at the toll booth were so super nice. They asked how my day was, and yeah, they were just super cool, super nice. So yeah, I paid my first tolls on my way in, and that was super weird, and I kind of want to know more about tolls now because apparently they're a common thing, and it'd be nice if, like, you got told, hey, your route has tolls on it. It took 3.5 hours to get there. I stopped twice. I stopped first at a Sheetz, and I got gas, and I got food. So the second time that I stopped was because I really had to pee, and I felt really bad when I walked into the Burger King because there was no one in there except employees. There was one woman mopping the floor, and I already felt bad because I had to step on the floor that she'd just freshly mopped. And then there were women behind the counter, and they all looked at me kind of strange, probably because I was dressed in my Andy Black outfit with a baseball hat and a big black X over my eye. And that's just like not normal makeup and not exactly normal clothes. Like, it's normal clothes. People wear that around here. But the mix of the makeup and the clothes was a little weird, so I felt really strange. I felt super, super strange to, like, walk into this Burger King and just be like, I'm just gonna use your bathroom. So instead, I walk up to the counter as if this whole time I was planning on getting something to eat. And I walk up and I just order the first meal. I believe I just ordered a number 13 because 13 is my number and that's the first number that I came up with. And most food menus don't even have a 13, so I got really lucky that they even had a number 13. But then I was like, while you get that ready, I'm just gonna run to the restroom, and I did. And the lady that took my order was just like, okay, sweetie. So I run to the restroom, and when I come back out, I just kind of awkwardly wait, and they had a cup sitting on the counter, but I didn't want to like assume that cup was mine, so I just kind of teetered in the corner for a while until they were like, that's your cup. So I pick up the cup, I get me some sweet tea, because if I did not have that sweet tea, I could not have made it the rest of the hour. I think it was just an hour left, but I could not have made it without some sweet tea, because all I had was a melted slushie that I'd gotten at Sheetz when I first stopped 2 hours ago, and then I also had a now hot Sunny D that I had poured myself before I left, and it sat in a hot car while I went to Sheetz, and then it got all weird, so I needed a sweet tea. And the sweet tea was really what I should have ordered instead of getting another meal, but I ordered the sweet tea. And I drank the sweet tea, but then the meal sat in my car while I was at the concert. But we'll get to that later. So after that awkwardness at the Burger King, and the Burger King was the only food stop on this exit, and the only stop at all on the stretch of road for like the last hour. So I was like, really need to stop, really just have to take a gamble and stop at this Burger King. So yeah. Once I leave the Burger King, first of all, I did not pull into the Burger King parking lot. I actually pulled into a Food Lion parking lot that was beside of it. The Food Lion did not even look like it was operable. Like, it didn't look like anyone had been in there all day or in a while. But I parked in that parking lot, so I walked across a little grassy area to the Burger King, but that's beside the point. You don't need to know all these details. I'm just telling you all these details because it paints a picture. So I get back in my car, start my music back up, and I look at my phone. I have zero service. No service at all. Zero service on my phone. And I'm like panicking. I'm like, oh my god, the GPS does not know where I am, and I have no service to reconnect my GPS so that it knows where I am. So I had to use my brain. I had to actually use my brain and think how roads work. So I remembered that it was like Highway 130 or Interstate 130, I don't know, it was 360, it was 360, because I remember thinking that's really odd that it's 360, and yeah, so I was like, okay, 360, I'll just follow signs to 360, so I ended up going over a railroad track, and then like this big loop, and the loop put me back on 360, and then my GPS recalculated, so I was fine, but I had a moment of panic. I had a moment of panic after an awkward moment at Burger King. But put me back on the road, and about an hour later, I arrived at Amber's house. It wasn't long after I arrived at Amber's that we got our Uber, because I arrived a little bit later than I was supposed to because of the 2 stops. It was like 3:40 when I arrived, and VIP check-in was like 4:40, so we wanted to get there in time. It was fine though, because the venue was running a little late. So myself, Amber, and her aunt get into the Uber, and we head to the venue. The venue is the National in Richmond, Virginia. And it kind of reminded me of the venue where I saw Black Veil Brides a few years ago that was also in Virginia. It was actually very close to where I saw them. When we get there, there's only like maybe 15 people in line, and we kind of panic. We're like, oh my gosh, have they already let the VIP in? But they hadn't. Just about everybody in that line was there for VIP. And the venue was actually running about, I want to say 30 minutes-ish late, so they didn't start letting us in until a little later. So it all worked out. So the venue security was actually so super sweet. The guy that came around to check our IDs was just so nice. He checked everyone's ID, and even if you didn't have an ID, he'd be nice about it. Like if they were younger, and obviously younger, he'd give them a smiley face wristband, and if you were older, he'd give you the 21 and older wristbands. They're really cute. I actually liked the 21 and under wristbands better because they had cute little smiley faces, but ours were just little yellow wristbands that say over 21. So my first reaction was like, oh my gosh, I want the smiley face one, but at the same time I'm like, no, you really need to do the real one and do the over 21. So I handed him my license too. And it wasn't long after they checked our license and gave us our appropriate wristbands that they actually let us into the venue and out of the heat. So the first thing they did was check our bag. I of course took my cute little ghost bag, which of course just had some essentials, but the security guy was again super sweet and nice, and he ended up not searching my bag until I gave him permission, which was really super sweet because sometimes venues will just open your bag and rummage through it without asking any questions or anything, and this guy was really super sweet about it. He was an older gentleman, and he was like, I learned a long time ago not to go messing in a woman's purse without permission. Once we were all in the air-conditioned area, there turned out to be only about 15 to maybe 20 of us. I wouldn't even say 20. There was probably about 15 of us there for VIP, which for an Andy VIP is super small. If you remember my other video, there was like triple that. So there was very few of us for this VIP. I think it was more just because it wasn't as advertised as the other was. The Blind Tiger show was super advertised. The national show was in between festival shows, and it just wasn't as hyped up as the other shows have been. So because it was very few of us, it was a very intimate setting. A few of us like chit-chatted and got to know each other a little bit, you know, talk about Andy, talk about American Satan and Paradise City. Like we all just kind of had a little fan club meeting of sorts, and it was really cool to like connect with other fans that I possibly could have never met if it weren't for this concert. So once again, Andy bringing people together. So of course, Frank did his usual spill, don't touch Andy, don't make him do awkward things, don't hug him, he'll put his arm around you, which feels like a hug. And then he stole Yanni's joke of if you have the camera on selfie mode, you'll get an awkward selfie of him. And of course we're like, that wouldn't be so bad, but we really want our picture with Andy. It was really cool to see Frank take on that role more than he did when Yanni was there. And honestly, Frank does such a good job. For those of you that don't remember, Frank is Andy's tour manager. At one point when Frank was gone to get Andy off of the bus, Sage, the drummer, actually walked through. And they were like, here's the Sage Weber meet and greet. And he just like casually walked through, barely even acknowledged, and went to do what he was on his way to do to start with. Would have been really cool if he stopped and actually talked to us though. But he was on a mission. He was on a complete mission. So we were actually given our VIP passes as we came into the venue. They looked like this. They looked just like they did at the Greensboro show, of course, because they're the same thing. However, I noticed something a little different. Andy had signed the VIP passes. So I noticed that the lanyard had been signed. I actually fidget with lanyards a lot because I wear a lanyard to work, and actually on the drive there I panicked multiple times because I didn't have my lanyard on, and I've been working so much that I was like, I forgot my lanyard, but then I was like, I don't need it. So it was actually kind of a comfort to get the VIP lanyard to put around my neck so that I could fidget with that. So then Frank actually says, because we don't have enough comic books to go around, we're just going to mail everyone their signed comic book, and instead I had Andy sign all of the VIP lanyards. If yours is not signed, he'll sign it when you get up to the front, and if you want something else signed and you brought it with you, then he can sign it because there's just so few of you. And that was an absolutely amazing surprise. It made me so happy. Frank also said that if we had something to tell Andy, that we could in that moment. Just don't like tell him your favorite color or anything, but if you want to tell him what his music means to you or something like that, something really short and sweet, it's okay to do that because there are so few of us. So the fact that it was not a lot of people in VIP really worked to our advantage, and we got to spend just a few more seconds with Andy than we normally would get to. So they actually had moved a trash can out of the way and had Andy stand in this like little altar area between the exit and some other area. I believe it was stairs or something, and it was because it was the only like really lit place there. It still was kind of dark though. I wish there was a better light, but I wish that at a lot of venues. But anyway, Andy stood in this one place, and it was actually a really nice backdrop. Much better than just the merch booth that was in the backdrop of the other photo, but I like both of my pictures. So when Andy came out, he obviously had a very Billy Idol-esque style, but like a dark Billy Idol. His hair's grown out, it's kind of spiky and poofy, and styled like Billy Idol hair. When he first stepped out, we were kind of like, oh, he's wearing sunglasses again. But unlike the last time, he actually took his sunglasses off and hooked them on his shirt. So this time we actually got a picture of Andy, eyes and all. As always, I was super awkward when I met him, but when it came my time to meet Andy, I didn't even have to introduce myself. So when I step up, Andy looks at me and he says, "Your look's a little different this time," which was obviously saying that I'm not wearing the dress that I made, I was wearing his merch instead. But after a little chit chat, we turned to the camera, and I noticed that instead of taking the picture, Frank was looking at my phone case, probably because of the pop socket on the back. And you guys vote on which phone case I should carry. I had a Batman phone case, which I actually thought you guys would vote on. Then I also just had a bat case, and this is actually the one that you guys ended up voting on. And as you can see, this case has little bat wings on the back, and it's to prop the phone up with, or to hold your phone so that you don't drop it. Like a pop socket, but it's a bat. So instead of taking the picture, Frank was doing like this and playing with the wings and figuring out what he was touching. So that's why my smile is extra huge in that picture, because I realized that he was playing with my phone to start with. But then he took the picture, and then I turned around, I took my hat off, and I had Andy sign the brim of my hat. That was so totally unplanned. Did not expect anything to be able to be signed, but the fact that it was the baseball hat really makes me happy. Speaking of things that make me really happy, before I forget, let me show you this really awesome sticker and button pack that I got. It actually says Andy Black sticker and button pack. Then there's the AB Ohio sticker. I'm not sure what the second one is. It looks like a picture of him. I should probably open it, huh? Should I open it? I'll open it. Yeah. Then it's got this sticker that's just got Andy Black across the back of it with a very shadowed Andy. And then 3 super cute buttons. The first is the AB Ohio logo. The next is a little white button that says Andy Black. There we go. And then the last and my absolute favorite is the green Andy portrait. And as most of you know, that picture was the inspiration for the dress that I made for the Greensboro show. So once I had my hat signed, I stepped to the side, and Amber and her aunt stepped up and got to talk a little with them too. Amber got to say a few words, and then her aunt got to tell Andy a very touching story. On Martin Luther King Day of last year, she lost her son Chris in a fatal car accident. After the accident, she heard Andy's song Beautiful Pain, and the song really resonated with her. So she got to tell Andy that story, and Andy was so super sweet about it. He held her hand, he told her how sorry he was for her loss. He was really, really, really sympathetic and real with her, and he really connected, and it was just a really touching moment. And he just stood there holding her hand, and it was just an amazing experience to watch, and I know it was an amazing experience for her. And she's so strong to have been able to talk about that to Andy. As her aunt was telling me the story, I also shared with her that the song Beautiful Pain has a connection with me as well, because every time I hear that song, I think about my friend Jonathan, who also passed away in a car accident. So it was almost ironic how the 3 things all had some sort of connection. So because she was the last person, they escorted Andy out afterwards. We all got our time either at the merch booth or at the stage, and I ended up getting water and viewing the merch table, and then headed to the stage because, like I said, there was only like 15 of us. By the time I got back to the stage, there were a few more people because they'd started letting people in from general admission since Andy was off the floor, and we ended up standing to the right of stage, which honestly wasn't my first choice because I knew that Lonnie plays to the left of Andy and Sage is behind him, and at the time I had no idea that they had a new guitarist, so I was like, we're not going to get to see much. But I was wrong. But before I get into the headliner, let's talk about the one opening act. They were actually Virginia locals, but from their name, I thought maybe they were like a German band or something, which is odd, I know, but it's just the way it was spelled. I actually took a picture of the drum head that had the name on it and sent it to my friend Miko, who speaks like 30 different languages, and I was like, hey Miko, what does this say? How do you pronounce this? And he sent me like 2 different voicemails about how it might be pronounced, but we were wrong. I think they said their name was Shag Wolf. Shag Wolf. I don't know how to say it. But you'll see a picture of it. You'll see a picture of the name. You decide how to say it. I know it sounded like wolf, O-L-F, but it was with a U, which is the oo sound. And usually if the oo is accompanied by a W, the W has a V sound, so it would have been like shag woof. But instead it sounded more like shag wolf when they said it. But anywho, I'm sure there's like this big origin to it, and it means something, but they were a band, they were playing, they didn't have time to like explain the origins of their band name, so I don't know how to say it, but you'll be able to see it, and you'll be able to look them up. They were a very nice, like, punky instrumental kind of band. They focused very heavily on their instruments versus the actual vocals, meaning there were a lot of instrumental parts to their songs and very few lyrics. It was sort of like a 1/3 scenario, like 2/3 was music and 1/3 was actual lyrics to most of their songs, which we weren't complaining about. It was really good. All of the songs sounded great. But when they actually did sing, the voice was amazing. The female vocalist especially gave it her absolute all. There were 2 vocalists. I believe they said their names were Sally and Pete. I was trying to take notes. I swear I was trying to take notes without seeming rude being on my phone. But I was trying to take notes, and I think they said their names were Sally and Pete, the 2 singers. But she could play guitar so good. There was a little bit of a sound issue as far as the volume of the different microphones versus the instrument sounds, but that's to be expected. I was honestly blown away by the female vocals. She had a very powerful voice, and she could make some absolutely amazing sounds with her mouth, from like a howling sound to a clicky sound. Like, it was just all really cool how she was doing sound effects within the songs, and that was really unique and interesting to hear. After they played, Amber actually got their set list, which was super cool, and then after the show she had all 3 of them sign it, so it was the 2 vocalists / guitarists and the drummer, and all 3 of them signed the paper. So now we get to the headliner. All the guys come on stage, then Andy of course, and he plays a couple of songs off the bat, which was really strange for us because we're used to seeing Andy perform. He like talks a little bit before he plays, or he talks a little bit after the first song, then we get another song and then he talks a little bit and he jokes around and he just does different things. We didn't really get that this time. Instead we just got an all business Andy who came out and sang, and then sang a second song, and then he introduced the band. Even when he introduced the band, there was like no jokes. It was just introducing everyone. He introduced Sage and Lonnie, and then he introduced Niles. I followed before because of his photography, so it was really interesting to see him on stage playing guitar for Andy. The funniest thing is, when Andy introduced him, I thought he said knives. And I didn't recognize Niles Gregory at first, so I was like, did he just say knives? Because that's cool. And the whole night I thought he said knives because I had no clue that Niles was playing with him. So this was the first time seeing him on the stage, and I was very confused. At least I think it was the first time. I don't remember him from Greensboro. I'm almost positive he wasn't at Greensboro. I was super confused, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. He's got a guy named Knives. And actually very recently Niles had a day off, so he did a Q&A, and I actually told him that I thought Andy called him Knives. He was like, I wish he would have, because that's a really cool name. And Amber's response to that story was, well, from this moment on, he's known as Knives. So from this day forward, I guess Niles is known as Knives. So there was this really itty-bitty little girl, little blonde girl. I think they said her name was Kara, and she couldn't see past people during the opening act to really see the stage. Amber and I let her between us during Andy's set, and she could barely see over the barricade. She was standing on her tiptoes, and her little eyes just barely were at the top of the barricade. It was the sweetest little thing, and she was so excited. So while he was on stage, he was running back and forth, a lot like a festival stage. Like if you've ever seen Andy perform at a festival, he was acting the same way. He wasn't acting like it was an intimate in-house kind of show. He was acting more like it was a festival show. So he was from one end of the stage to the other end very quickly, back and forth. And one time that he was over at our side, he actually saw us all pointing at the little girl, and he waved at her. And she got so excited. And during We Don't Have to Dance, she knew every word. She was standing there, bobbing her little ponytail, singing along, and it was so precious and so sweet and just amazing. And speaking of amazing things, Andy actually performed the song Beautiful Pain at this concert. Another surprise song that we got was actually his cover of 21 Guns, and I was honestly a little surprised. I was expecting a Billy Idol cover because he had been singing Dancing with Myself, which is one of my absolute favorite Billy Idol songs. I love Billy Idol. Billy Idol was one of my first loves, so I was really expecting and almost hoping that he would sing a Billy Idol song. I also saw where he had been singing Sadie by Alkaline Trio, which is my favorite Alkaline Trio song, so that would have been awesome to hear. But it was an all-out surprise that he sang 21 Guns, because that's another song that I'd never heard him sing live, and it was just really cool to hear that cover live. So that was a welcomed surprise. I was just a little thrown off by it because I was expecting either Alkaline Trio or Billy Idol as his one cover that he was going to sing, so it was kind of a shock, but not a bad shock. The stage lights were very blue and very dim, so even looking right at him, it was kind of hard to see him sometimes, especially when he'd go over to the far left or far right of the stage. It'd get really dark and it was hard to see. The stage was also very long, so anytime that he'd go to the left, he'd just disappear. Which of course just gave me time to focus on Sage's drumming or Niles on guitar, so it all just kind of worked out. This one girl who was sort of in front of me because she was beside of me, and if I was looking at the stage, she was like in my line of view. She was an absolute Sage fangirl. She couldn't have been more than 13, 14 years old, but she kept shouting, "The drummer's hot! What's the drummer's name?" And it was just the funniest thing. The downside was that she kept playing with her hair, thinking that they could see her from the stage, and she kept like trying to fix her hair and twirling it around her finger and stuff. It was really funny and really entertaining to watch. Sometimes when I was trying to record Andy, I would get clips of just her hand in the frame because she would continuously try to play with her hair. It was an absolutely fantastic show, a wonderful performance. His voice was amazing. Andy's always extremely passionate. He loves what he's doing. He loves being on stage, and he's always a thrill to watch. Andy is amazing no matter what. We always say, Andy comes first. For example, there was also a festival going on in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a lot of amazing bands playing, the same day that Andy was in Richmond. I knew some people going to that. Instead, I chose to see Andy. No regrets. If I have the choice, I'm always going to choose to go see Andy. So overall experience, the goods outweighed the strange. It was a totally different experience than what I had in Greensboro. Like, some things were better, some things were different, but it all was wonderful. For example, the VIP went totally differently this time than it did when we had 50 plus people at the other one. No day is the same, nothing's the same ever, and it was just so super cool to see this totally different experience with the same artist, and technically the same tour. Even though I already did a Andy Black concert and VIP experience review, this one, totally different. Completely different show, completely different headliners, everything was different. As a whole, I'm so happy that I drove the 3.5 hours, and totally 100% perfect show. I got to meet Andy again, and it was wonderful, and I got to hear Andy sing in person again, which was wonderful, because it always is, and now I can't wait for another tour date that's close by. We hung around a little after the show. It was not crowded when we left, because it never really got crowded. There was very few people in the audience in comparison to the theater that we were in, so it was really easy to get an Uber. The Uber came right up to us. It actually ended up being a really super funny guy. Our driver was a super funny guy. His father actually worked as a bouncer, both at the National and for Warped Tour when Warped Tour would come through Virginia, And he said he used to sneak in with his dad and get to see the shows, see all sorts of bands, and we talked about music and we talked about different shows, and we told them how absolutely amazing Andy is, because we're always trying to spread the word of Andy. So it was a really fun ride back to Amber's place. And then when we got there, of course, we talked about the concert some more. They talked about my nails, and I made the decision on if I was going to stay there or if I was going to drive back. I ended up driving back, so I drove another 3.5 hours back home. So on the way home, Amber suggested that I do an avoiding tolls thing on my GPS, and I totally did. And my route took me where I was avoiding tolls. However, it took me down this like creepy wrong turn-esque road in Virginia, and I didn't like it. So next time, I'll just pay the tolls. I'll pay the tolls and I'll stay on a normal highway, because that side road was creepy and the speed limit was so slow, and I just felt like any second something was gonna jump out of the trees and get into my car somehow. Like, it was super creepy and so scary movie that I was like, not gonna do this again. Could not wait to get back on that highway. Like, wish I had never avoided tolls to begin with. So I'm very prone to getting tired when I'm driving at night, or when I'm driving for a long distance in general. So that Burger King that I stopped and got before the concert, I actually ate on the way home to keep me awake, keep me alert. And of course, I had the radio blaring. I was listening to Black Veil Brides, Ice Nine Kills, just like the loudest music on my playlist, because I needed to stay awake. The roads were completely dark and completely dead, and I made 0 stops on the way back. I just V-lined right to the house. Actually, I put in my GPS to stop at a Sheetz, but my GPS did not recognize that Sheetz was under construction and not open at the time. So I ended up not stopping at that Sheetz, and I powered myself all the way back to the house, even though I really needed gas, but there was nowhere to stop to get gas. The last really eventful thing that happened was I actually got stopped in a license check. It's just a standard license check, nothing serious. But I was coming through a town and it was a license check, and the cop was like, "Can I see your license?" I reached into my bag and I realized it's not in that bag, so I was like, "Sorry, I just got back from a concert. It's actually in my smaller bag," because I had transferred it from my purse into the ghost bag. So he was like, "That's fine, just grab it." So I grabbed my little purse, got my ID out, he checked it, and he was like, "So what concert did you see?" I was like, "I just came back from Andy Black in Richmond." He was like, "Wow, that's a long way to go for a concert." And I was like, "Yeah, I absolutely love Andy Black." He's like, "I've heard his stuff before, he's really good." So, just another person that loves Andy. And it was really odd that this random license check officer knew who Andy was and was so super friendly, even though it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was really awesome finally getting home. I got home around 3 a.m. and I was out. Like, I hit the pillow and I was out. So, down in the comments below, if you've seen Andy on the Ghost of Ohio tour, tell me what yours was like. Tell me something really special about it. Just tell me something really special from the Ghost of Ohio tour that you're really excited to tell me about. And so that was me talking about the Andy Black concert and VIP experience in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye. So hot. Burning up. Bye again.
And I shouldn't have to explain my joke. If you get it, you get it. It was actually very close to the national, like to Richmond, but it wasn't. Itchy.
And it kind of reminded me of the venue where I saw, oh my god, stop! What are you doing? That's my foot.
Which is out of frame, but it's usually like right there. What? And as most of you know,
Thank you very much.
Mooch.
he'll like look into the audience, and for a split second, you'll feel like he's looking at you.
One thing I noticed was that Lonnie's hair looked so awesome. Or, oh, that's where that came from. Merch, booth, mooth. So then, so they didn't let us. Dang. And they actually. And Blurry party. And it was. Ow. How her. Andy was so. Andy, you awake? Phoenix. And then Niles on to. Why is that sentence not coming out? Bag and rummage the.
Thank you very much.
Where I was avoiding where I actually measured. And then I ask if you. But yeah, it was funny. It was a funny moment. They were actually and it wasn't long after that. And then and the food line did not even look like it was. Excuse you. The longest. So yeah.